sense this pull, adjusting their steps, lowering their voices, becoming part of the slower rhythm without realizing when it happened. Doorways appear modest and narrow, blending into stone walls. Some show signs of age, scratches, faded markings, softened edges. Others seem untouched, as if carefully preserved by time itself. Each doorway suggests a life lived beyond it, ordinary and private, protected from the outside world by thick walls and heavy doors. The smell of stone, damp earth, and distant smoke lingers faintly in the air. It is not unpleasant, it is grounding. It connects the present moment to countless moments before it, when the same scents filled the same streets. This continuity gives the city its calm, steady character. Even the sky feels different above Edinburgh. It appears closer, framed by rooftops and chimneys. Clouds move slowly, their shadows passing over stone like gentle waves. Light changes quickly here, shifting moods without warning, yet never feeling harsh or abrupt. There is a sense of quiet endurance in the city. Edinburgh does not seek admiration, it does not demand attention, it simply exists, solid and patient, confident in its own presence. The city knows it has seen more than most places ever will, and it has no need to prove it. As the day moves forward, the stone remains unchanged. People come and go, light shifts, sounds rise and fall, yet the city stays steady, holding its shape and its silence. Entering Edinburgh feels less like arriving somewhere new and more like stepping into a space that has been waiting, unchanged, for a very long time. The city of stone does not rush you. It allows you to arrive fully, slowly, and without expectation. It offers no instructions, only atmosphere, and in that quiet, measured welcome, Edinburgh begins to reveal itself, not through words, but through presence. The streets of Edinburgh were never meant to impress. They were shaped by necessity, pressed into form by geography, danger, and daily endurance. Each curve, slope, and narrow passage carries the quiet logic of survival rather than beauty. Walking through them, it becomes clear that nothing here exists by accident. Many of the streets climb sharply, rising and falling with the land instead of resisting it. This was not a choice but a requirement. The city grew where it could, holding tightly to higher ground for safety and defense. Over time, paths hardened into roads, and roads became permanent, even when they remained difficult to walk. The narrowness of the streets is striking. Buildings lean inward, leaving just enough space for movement. This closeness once offered protection. Fewer entrances meant fewer threats. The tight passages made it easier to control who came and went, especially during uncertain times when safety depended on visibility and familiarity. Closes and winds branch off from main streets like quiet veins. These narrow passageways feel enclosed, sometimes dim even during the day. Stone walls rise high on both sides, blocking sound and light. In these spaces, footsteps feel louder, and the outside world fades quickly. They were built not for comfort, but for efficiency and shelter. During harsh weather, these streets provided a form of protection. The tall buildings shielded people from wind and rain, creating narrow corridors where storms felt less violent. Snow gathered unevenly, and rain drained quickly along sloped surfaces, guided naturally by the land beneath the stone. The streets also reflected the reality of limited space. With land constrained, life moved upward. Buildings grew taller, stacking homes, workshops, and storage above one another. Streets became the shared ground for everyone, workers, children, merchants and animals, all moving through the same narrow routes each day. Movement through the city required awareness. Corners were blind, slopes unpredictable, and surfaces uneven. People learned where to step, how to balance, and when to slow down. This constant attention created a rhythm that favored caution over speed, presence over distraction. The stone underfoot tells its own story. Worn smooth in places, cracked in others, it carries the marks of countless feet. Carts once rattled over these surfaces, leaving shallow grooves. Rain polished the stone, while frost tested its strength. The streets absorbed all of it, changing slowly but never disappearing. Cleanliness was not the purpose of these streets. They were practical, not gentle. Water flowed openly, carrying away waste and rain alike. People adapted to this reality, timing their movements, choosing paths carefully and learning to live with what could not be changed. Markets brought brief moments of liveliness. Stalls appeared and vanished, filling streets with quiet negotiation and steady exchange. Yet even then, the streets did not lose their seriousness. Trade happened quickly, efficiently, shaped by the same narrow spaces that governed everything else. At night, the streets transformed. Darkness gathered quickly between tall buildings. Lamps offered limited light, casting so glows that barely reached beyond a few steps. People stayed close to walls, moved carefully, and trusted memory more than sight. Familiar paths mattered more than visibility. The soundscape remained subdued. Voices carried only short distances. Conversations softened naturally, absorbed by stone. This quiet created a sense of shared restraint, as if the streets themselves encouraged calm and caution. Over time, these streets shaped behavior as much as they shaped movement. People learned patience. They learned to navigate around one another without force. The environment demanded cooperation, awareness, and a certain acceptance of limits. Even today, the streets hold this character. Modern life passes through them, but the structure remains unchanged. Cars move slowly, footsteps still echo. The stone still narrows the world, guiding people into a slower, more deliberate pace. The streets do not invite wandering without purpose. They ask for intention, for attention. Each turn feels earned. Each path feels chosen rather than accidental. This creates a quiet intimacy between the city and those who walk through it. Edinburgh's streets were built to last, not to charm. They reflect a time when survival depended on strength, shelter, and simplicity, and in their endurance, they continue to serve the same purpose, holding life steady, one careful step at a time. Beneath the steady presence of the castle, life unfolded quietly inside stone walls. Homes in Edinburgh were not designed for comfort or beauty. They were shaped by necessity, stacked closely together, rising upward because there was nowhere else to go. These homes existed in the castle's shadow, both physically and symbolically, protected by its strength and limited by its presence. Inside, space was precious. Rooms were small, often shared by entire families. Walls were thick, built to endure weather and time, but they also held in darkness. Windows were narrow and placed high, allowing light to enter carefully, never generously. Daylight arrived in soft fragments, moving slowly across stone floors and fading early in the afternoon. Furniture was minimal. A table, a few stools, perhaps a chest for belongings. Beds were simple frames filled with straw or rough fabric, shared when necessary. Privacy was not expected. Life happened together, in full view of one another. Shaped by routine rather than choice, the sound of the city filtered inward constantly. Footsteps on stone, distant voices, the soft echo of movement in the streets below. These sounds became part of daily life, familiar and reassuring. Silence, when it arrived, felt heavy rather than peaceful, often signalling late hours or harsh weather. Fire was central to the home. A hearth provided warmth, light, and a place to cook. Smoke lingered, darkening ceilings and settling into walls. Over time, homes absorbed this presence, carrying the scent of fire even when flames were low. The hearth defined the rhythm of the day, gathering people close during cold hours. Water had to be carried, often from shared sources. This task shaped mornings and evenings alike. The effort of bringing water inside made every drop valuable. Cleaning was practical, never excessive. Homes reflected this careful balance between effort and necessity. Upper levels were reached by narrow stairways, worn smooth by countless steps. These stairs twisted up-you-bub-you, hard, steep and enclosed, offering little room for error. Carrying goods or children required care and familiarity. Each step was memorized, navigated almost without thought after years of repetition. The castle above was always present. It loomed in views from windows and streets, a constant reminder of authority and protection. Its shadow moved slowly across rooftops as the day passed, marking time without sound. For those living beneath it, the castle was not a destination but a landmark of permanence. Homes varied little in structure, but life within them differed quietly. Some rooms held skilled hands at work, mending, carving, preparing goods for trade. Others were places of rest after long days of labour elsewhere. These activities blended into the background of the city, unseen yet essential. Light from candles and lamps softened interiors at night. Shadows grew longer, stretching across walls unevenly. Faces appeared and disappeared in the gentle flicker. Conversations lowered naturally, shaped by close quarters and shared fatigue. The night encouraged calm rather than activity. Cold was a familiar presence. Even indoors, warmth was limited. Stone retained chill, releasing it slowly. People layered clothing, shared blankets, and stayed close to the hearth. Sleep came early, not by choice but by environment. Darkness arrived quickly, and homes responded by becoming quieter. Children grew up surrounded by this closeness. They learned the layout of rooms before they learned the streets. They understood sound, space, and routine instinctively. Home was not a retreat from the world, but a continuation of it, shaped by the same stone and silence. Despite limitations, these homes offered stability. Walls stood firm, roofs held against weather. Within these spaces, lives continued steadily, marked by repetition rather than change. There was comfort in familiarity, even when comfort itself was modest. The smell of food cooking, damp stone, smoke, and fabric blended into a single atmosphere unique to each home, yet shared across the city. These scents lingered, embedding themselves into memory, connecting generations through shared experience. At night, the city seemed to settle. Sounds softened, movement slowed. Homes beneath the castle became quiet shelters, holding families close while the stone city rested. Outside, the castle remained watchful, unchanged and silent, as it had been for centuries. Living beneath the castle meant accepting both protection and limitation. Homes did not promise ease or luxury. They offered endurance. And within those walls, beneath the weight of stone and history, everyday life continued calmly, patiently, and without spectacle. Work in Edinburgh did not begin with urgency. It arrived quietly, carried by habit rather than clocks. The day unfolded at a measured pace, guided by light, weather, and long-established routines. People rose not because time demanded it, but because life required steady movement forward. Morning sounds were subtle: a door opening, footsteps on stone, the soft exchange of greetings spoken without haste. The city did not wake all at once. It stirred slowly, allowing each household to join the rhythm when ready. Work was woven into life so tightly that it felt natural, almost unremarkable. Trades were practical and local. Craftsmen worked close to home, often within the same buildings where they lived. Hands shaped wood, metal, leather, and cloth, with movements learned over years of repetition. These tasks were not rushed. Precision mattered more than speed. The result needed to last, not impress. Markets formed the heart of daily exchange. They appeared without ceremony, filling familiar spaces with quiet activity. Goods were displayed simply. Food, tools, fabrics, and small necessities changed hands through calm negotiation. Voices remained low, shaped by narrow streets and mutual understanding. Trade was less about profit and more about continuity. Workshops carried their own steady sounds. The scrape of tools, the soft tapping of hammer on metal, the measured rhythm of manual labor. These sounds blended into the background of the city, creating a low, constant hum that marked the passage of hours more reliably than any bell. Servants and labourers moved between households, carrying out tasks that supported the larger structure of city life. Cleaning, carrying, repairing, and preparing were done quietly and without recognition. Their work kept the city functioning, though it rarely drew attention. Time was not divided sharply. Work and rest flowed into one another. A task paused to share a meal. Conversation slipped easily into labour. Children learned by watching, absorbing skills without formal instruction. The rhythm of work became the rhythm of life itself. Meals were simple and timed by availability rather than schedule. Food was prepared as work allowed, eaten without ceremony, and returned to when needed. The body adjusted naturally, conserving energy and avoiding excess. The weather shaped every decision. Rain slowed movement. Cold shortened days. Light determined when work could continue and when it must stop. People adapted without complaint, accepting these limits as part of daily existence. The city moved in harmony with its environment, not against it. Midday passed almost unnoticed. There was no clear dividing line between morning and afternoon. Work continued steadily, shaped by endurance rather than ambition. Each completed task carried quiet satisfaction, not celebration. Trade connected neighbourhoods without extending far beyond them. Most exchanges occurred within familiar boundaries. Trust grew from repetition, from seeing the same faces day after day. Reputation mattered more than expansion. Stability was valued above growth. As the day progressed, movement gradually slowed. Tasks were finished carefully, tools set aside deliberately. There was no rush to conclude. Work ended when light faded or energy waned, not when an hour demanded it. Evening brought a gentle shift. Streets softened as activity reduced. The sounds of trade faded, replaced by quieter domestic movements. Work did not disappear. It simply changed form, becoming smaller, slower, and closer to home. The rhythm of the city settled into calm repetition. Each day resembled the last, not in boredom, but in reassurance. Familiar patterns provided structure in a world where little could be controlled. There was dignity in this consistency. Work was not a path to change, but a means of survival and belonging. Each person played a role, visible or unseen, contributing to the steady life of the city. Edinburgh's daily rhythm was built on endurance rather than excitement. It favoured patience over speed, care over urgency. This rhythm softened the hardships of life, providing predictability in an unpredictable world. As night approached, the city grew quieter, but its work lingered in memory. Hands rested, muscles relaxed, and minds settled. The day closed not with finality, but with gentle completion. The rhythm would begin again without announcement, just as it always had. Work, trade, and daily life continued, steady and unremarkable, held together by habit, necessity, and the quiet strength of routine. Silence in Edinburgh was never empty. It lived between sounds, settling into stone walls and narrow streets, filling spaces where voices faded. This silence was familiar, almost expected, and people learned to live within it rather than resist it. It offered calm, but it also carried weight. Belief shaped this quiet deeply. Faith was not loud or dramatic, it was steady and woven into daily life. Churches stood firmly among homes and streets, their presence constant rather than commanding. Bells rang sparingly, marking moments without urgency. For many, belief offered structure in a world shaped by uncertainty. Inside homes, belief was practiced quietly. Simple prayers, repeated phrases, and familiar rituals provided comfort. These acts did not promise answers, but they offered steadiness. In a city where life could change suddenly, belief helped people accept what could not be controlled. Fear existed alongside faith, often unspoken. Illness arrived without warning. Fires spread quickly through closely packed buildings. Accidents happened in dark streets and steep stairways. These fears were understood rather than discussed. Silence became a way to live with them. The city's narrowness amplified uncertainty. Sound DS travelled unpredictably. A distant noise could feel close. A sudden quiet could feel unsettling. People learned to interpret these shifts instinctively, reading the city's mood through subtle changes rather than clear signals. Superstition quietly filled the gaps where understanding failed. Certain paths were avoided at night. Certain actions were repeated for reassurance. These habits did not replace belief but existed alongside it, offering comfort through familiarity rather than logic. Night deepened the city's silence. As activity slowed, fear became more noticeable, though never openly expressed. Lamps cast limited light, leaving shadows untouched. People moved carefully, trusting memory and routine more than sight. Familiar routes offered safety. Inside, homes responded by drawing inward. Doors closed firmly, curtains were pulled tight. Firelight softened edges and created a sense of enclosure. Families gathered closer, sharing warmth and quiet presence. Words were few, but connection was strong. Church interiors mirrored this calm restraint. Stone walls held sound gently. Voices lowered naturally, absorbed by space. Faith here was reflective rather than expressive, offering stillness rather than excitement. It allowed people to sit with uncertainty instead of fleeing from it. The castle above watched silently. Its presence reassured and reminded at the same time. Protection came with authority. Stability came with limits. People accepted this balance without debate, understanding that safety often required submission. Hidden fears shaped behavior subtly. People avoided unnecessary risks. They stayed within known boundaries. Ambition was tempered by caution. Survey. Val mattered more than exploration. This restraint was not weakness, but adaptation. Children absorbed these lessons quietly. They learned when to speak softly, when to stay close, when to move carefully. Fear was not taught directly, but it was understood through example. Silence became part of education. Illness brought particular stillness. Homes grew quieter, movement slowed, and attention narrowed. Neighbours helped discreetly, without announcement. Care happened quietly, respecting both dignity and uncertainty. Hope was present, but cautious. Even belief carried restraint. Faith did not promise protection from hardship. It offered acceptance instead. This acceptance softened fear, turning it into something manageable rather than overwhelming. The city itself seemed to participate in this quiet understanding. Stone absorbed emotion as well as sound. Streets held memories without revealing them. Walls witnessed lives without interruption. Over time, silence became comforting. It allowed space for thought, rest, and endurance. It made room for belief to settle gently rather than demand attention. It kept fear contained, acknowledged but not dominant. Edinburgh lived within this balance. Silence, belief, and hidden fears coexisted without conflict. Each supported the other, creating a steady emotional landscape shaped by restraint rather than excess. As hours passed, the city remained composed. Nothing dramatic disturbed the stillness. Life continued quietly, held together by acceptance and routine. Fear did not disappear, but it stayed in its place, softened by belief and silence. In this way, the city endured, not through noise or certainty, but through calm persistence. Edinburgh carried its fears quietly, trusted its beliefs gently, and allowed silence to hold what words could not. Nightfall in Edinburgh did not arrive suddenly. It settled gradually, like a deep breath taken by the city itself. Light faded softly from stone walls, and shadows stretched longer with each passing moment. The old capital did not resist the night. It welcomed it, allowing darkness to become part of its familiar rhythm. As daylight weakened, the streets grew quieter. Movement slowed without instruction. Shops closed their doors not with urgency, but with practiced calm. Footsteps became fewer, and voices softened further, as if the city itself requested gentleness. Night here was not an interruption, but a return. Lamps began to glow one by one, casting small pools of light onto uneven stone. Their reach was limited, leaving much of the street untouched. Shadows remained deep and unmoving, settled into corners and along walls. These dark spaces felt accepted rather than threatening, simply part of how the city rested. Windows offered faint signs of life. A flicker of candlelight, a brief movement behind glass, then stillness again. Homes turned inward, becoming quieter and more contained. Inside, families gathered close, sharing warmth and presence more than conversation. The air cooled quickly. Stone released the chill it had held throughout the day, and the streets responded by becoming still. The smell of smoke lingered lightly, drifting from chimneys and settling into the night air. It mixed with damp earth and old stone, creating a scent unique to the city after dark. Sounds carried differently at night. A single step echoed farther than expected. A distant door closing felt closer than it was. The city's silence deepened, making each noise feel deliberate, even when it was not. People moved carefully, aware of how sound travelled through narrow streets. Familiar paths mattered more than ever. Without strong light, memory guided movement. Residents knew where the ground dipped, where stairs began, where walls narrowed. This knowledge allowed calm navigation through darkness, reducing uncertainty and preserving confidence. The castle above remained visible, outlined faintly against the sky. Its presence anchored the night, offering a sense of continuity. It did not dominate the darkness. It simply existed within it, steady and unchanged. Inside homes, the evening unfolded quietly. Simple meals were finished. Tools were set aside. Firelight softened stone walls, creating a gentle glow that did not fully chase away shadows. Conversations, if they happened, were low and brief. Fatigue encouraged stillness rather than activity. Sleep came naturally. Without artificial light or distraction, bodies followed the rhythm of darkness. Rest was practical, not indulgent. It was taken when available and respected as necessary. The streets outside held a different kind of quiet, not empty, but resting. Even when someone passed through, their presence felt temporary, like a ripple rather than a disruption. The city accepted movement without responding to it. Occasionally, a distant sound reminded listeners that life continued beyond their immediate surroundings. A cart moving slowly, a voice carried briefly by the wind. These sounds faded quickly, returning the city to its composed stillness. Fear existed at night, but it was control, led. People trusted routine more than reassurance. Staying close to known spaces, avoiding unnecessary movement, and respecting darkness were forms of safety learned over time. Night demanded awareness, not panic. The sky above the city felt closer after dark. Clouds moved quietly, reflecting faint light back down onto rooftops. Stars appeared when weather allowed, framed by chimneys and high walls. The sky felt like another layer of the city, contained and calm. Time lost sharp definition at night. Hours passed without measurement. The city did not track sleep, it simply allowed it. Rest became a shared experience, even among strangers separated by walls. In the deeper hours, Edinburgh felt suspended, not asleep, but paused. Stone held warmth and memory. Streets waited without expectation. Homes breathed quietly, filled with slow, steady rest. This pause was essential. It allowed the city to recover from the demands of daily life. Night softened edges, eased tension and restored balance. It prepared everything gently, without effort. As darkness held the old capital, nothing needed to change. The city remained exactly as it was meant to be, quiet, contained and enduring. Nightfall did not conceal Edinburgh, it revealed its calmest form. And within that calm, the city rested comfortably, held by stone, shadow and silence, until light would eventually return on its own terms. Edinburgh does not preserve its history by holding it still. It allows the past to breathe, moving gently through streets, walls and everyday routines. History here is not confined to books or monuments. It lives quietly within the city's structure, carried forward without ceremony. Stone remembers. Buildings stand where they have always stood, their surfaces marked by weather and time. These marks are not repaired away. They remain visible, accepted as part of the city's identity. Each crack and worn edge holds the weight of years without demanding attention. People move through these spaces with ease, often without noticing how deeply the past shapes their path. Steps follow old routes, doors open into rooms shaped by earlier lives. The city does not ask its residents to remember consciously, it reminds them simply by existing. The layout remains unchanged in spirit, even as life continues forward. Streets still guide movement, walls still shape sound. Height and narrowness still define perspective. Modern presence settles into these forms without disrupting them, adapting quietly rather than replacing what came before. History breathes through routine. Daily actions echo those of generations past. Walking, working, resting, and gathering follow patterns established long ago. These actions feel natural, not inherited. The past survives not through imitation, but through continuity. Edinburgh's buildings do not compete for attention. They stand together, creating a unified presence rather than individual statements. This harmony allows history to feel calm rather than overwhelming. Nothing here insists on importance. Everything simply belongs. The castle remains a steady anchor. It has witnessed change without reacting to it. From its height, it overlooks a city that has transformed slowly, carefully, and without urgency. Its presence reminds the city of its endurance rather than its power. Light continues to shape the city as it always has. It slips between structures, settles briefly, then moves on. Shadows behave predictably, familiar to those who walk the streets daily. Time passes visibly, marked not by clocks but by shifting brightness. Voices still soften in narrow spaces. Sound still fades quickly. Silence still feels natural. These sensory details carry memory more effectively than words. They connect present moments to countless similar moments before them. History also lives in restraint. The city avoids excess. It values balance, patience, and endurance. This character developed through necessity, but it remains by choice. Edinburgh does not rush to redefine itself. It moves forward without abandoning what holds it together. Change arrives gently here. New elements adapt to old forms. Materials echo existing textures. Movement respects established rhythms. The city allows growth without disruption, ensuring that history continues to breathe rather than being sealed away. People living within Edinburgh often feel this without naming it. There is a sense of belonging that does not require explanation. The city offers stability in its familiarity, grounding those who move through it daily. Memory exists not as nostalgia, but as presence. The past does not pull attention backward. It supports the present quietly, offering depth without distraction. This balance keeps the city alive rather than preserved. Edinburgh's endurance lies in its acceptance of time. It does not resist aging. It allows weather, use, and repetition to leave their marks. These marks are not signs of decline, but of continued life. Even moments of stillness feel active. Streets waiting between footsteps, buildings holding warmth, air resting against saint. 1. The city is never truly silent or still. It is simply calm. This calm allows history to remain accessible, not through instruction but through experience. Walking here becomes a form of connection, grounding individuals in something larger without overwhelming them. The city breathes history by allowing it to coexist with the present. There is no separation, no division between then and now. The past does not dominate and the present does not erase. Edinburgh continues because it has learned how to hold time gently. It does not cling and it does not forget. It carries memory forward through space, structure, and rhythm. As life continues within its walls, the city remains steady. Stone holds. streets guide. Silence settles where needed. History breathes quietly, sustained not by attention, but by use. In this way, Edinburgh endures, not as a monument, but as a living place shaped by time, patience, and presence. A city that does not speak loudly of its past, yet never stops carrying it forward, one calm moment at a time,